different options here that I'm going to go over today. A few different things that I have at my house. French press, obviously, which is probably the most common thing that people have had since like the 70s. As well a pour over system, which this is basically a Kalita, which is my preference and what I like training and teaching people on. And then, of course, hidden behind all my other gear, I have a regular automatic coffee pot. This isn't a normal Mr. Coffee, but it almost functions the same as one, but brews an excellent cup of coffee. Then I have an AeroPress, which is another single serve brewing method. And I'm going to do a little cold brew kit as well to show you guys how to do a little cold brew at home if you need. So a couple essential items that you'll need. A water pot, basically. So hot water. Oh no, my setup failed. Thanks, Bridge. So basically, it is best if you have a variable temperature kettle that you can adjust the temperature on. There's many of them out there. My favorite and preference is going to be the Bonavita variable temperature kettle. It's accurate, they last forever, and they're not too pricey. They're around like $40, and they're really great for teas, or heating up hot water for some broths. If you don't want to add cold water and stuff like that. I use a lot for cooking and coffee, obviously. So that's one important thing as well, but if not, you could use a regular kettle on your stove, and whenever you're brewing coffee or pouring it on coffee, the recommendation is bring it to a boil and then turn it off and wait about 30 seconds, and then it should be around 195 to 205, which is where you want the optimal temperature for brewing coffee is. Again, that's 195 degrees and between 195 and 205 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's important thing number one is get your water right. Filter water is always recommended, especially in Texas because we don't have wonderful water. It's not the cleanest thing in the world, but coffee is very dependent on the solubles that are inside the water, whether it's sodium content, mineral content, or any other additives that are in the water. So if not, I always recommend Ozarka water just because it's a little slightly minerally. It's spring water. And it has a good pairing if you're wanting to really dive deep into kind of coffee water. And as well, the most important thing that I would say is probably your best investment that you could do is a good coffee grinder. Coffee grinding, the grind of your coffee is very specific because I wish that it would be easy to say that all coffee can be ground and brewed the same. It's sadly not, because a lot of different beans. Just like I always like to use the example of tomatoes, how you have Roma, you have cherry, you have beefsteak, you have a bunch of different variations of tomatoes, but as you know, they're all different shapes, sizes, and flavors. And with coffee, that goes the same way, so they all have different shapes, sizes, and flavors as well, but also densities. So some are harder, some are more coarse to grind up, and so some are more water soluble and some are not. But I have kind of get-arounds for all those for preference of preferred grind size for all these brewing methods. My recommendation for a automatic grinder is a Baratza Encore grinder. It's the best bang for your buck coffee grinder that you can get on the market. It's about $130. It is a little more pricey, but compared to the quality that you're receiving from it, a lot of the issues that you get from some of the cheaper like Cuisinart or other grinders like that is inconsistent grinding, and they don't always last as long. Chop and blade grinders work fine, but you're just still going to get that inconsistency. But I've used them for many years in my life. So it's just up to your preference of how kind of hands-on you want to get with your home brewing coffee. I have a Baratza Forte, which is right there. It's an automatic grinder. It's a little more high-end, I guess. Not many people have them at their house. It was a gift to me from a previous job. Let's see what else. Oh, another important one, and I'm kind of a hypocrite for saying it because I don't have one here right now, is a scale. So I know most people do scales at their house, whether it's a food scale, coffee scale, or just a light scale that can read grams. If you're wanting to dive in deep, a scale is also very important for knowing, checking how many coffee grounds you're using, but how much water you're putting in there. So those are the two main factors there. But I'm doing it old school, a lot of visuals and a lot of kind of by what's in your vessel. Yeah, so I also have a few different coffees here that I have in my stock, mostly Ethiopians, because those are coming back in stock right now for season. I have Buchiro, actually two different Buchiros. They're two different fermentation processes. And if y'all want to learn about fermentation and stuff, let me know a little later. Oh, can you read the comments for me?
Oh.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll go from there. Yeah, so let's get started. First, I'm just going to get us started all over with the pour over here. Get my water up to temperature. I always recommend, so to show everyone, I have my pour over system and then the cone filter that fits in there, just like that. And I'm using glass so everyone can kind of see. But I recommend a pre-rinse. This does a couple things. So a pre-rinse for your pour over seats the filter into your vessel so that it will not be more air gaps or separation in anything that you're doing. Okay, set that there. Okay. And it also allows the coffee oils not to completely soak and clog your paper filter as well. So it allows more penetration for that good bean juice to get through there. So I went ahead and pre-ground some coffee for everyone. So for whenever you're doing a pour over, or I would say a automatic brewer method, you're going to use a kind of finer grind. I don't know if y'all could see that well. There you go. But it's basically the size of kind of table salt is what you're shooting for with your grind. And for this, like I said, I don't have a scale. Oh, I left it over here. So what I'm going to do is it's recommended through the SCA, which is Specialty Coffee Association, recommended that you do 2 full tablespoons per 6 ounces of water that you use. So for this method, I'm going to brew about 330 grams of coffee, which is about 10 ounces of coffee. So I am going to do 2 and a 3 and like a half. That should get me around 24 grams of coffee. Typically for like a 10 or 12 ounce pour over, you want to use anywhere from 24 to 26 grams of coffee for a 10 to 12 ounce cup of coffee. All right, so I pre-soaked the filter, added my coffee, give it a little settle so it's completely flat on your pour over system. And then we got the hot water on the temperature. Oh, I need my phone. The other important thing is time. So I'm getting my timer up on my phone. So time is very important for any of you that like teas. Eileen, I know you do. As you know, you can over steep something and or extract something more. So with a pour over, we're trying to get all those variables and parameters right. So we don't have under extraction or over extraction. We kind of want that middle of the road. So because I don't have scales here, I know that this pour over with this method, Kalita Wave, should finish around like 3.5 minutes usually. And so I'll kind of go through my step process of what I do. I do a 10-second pour, a 30-second bloom, and then a consistent pour until I hit 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I believe. So we're going to go through that. So I'm going to start my timer at the same time I start. And here we go. So we got a slow bloom where I circle around the coffee and just give it enough water to get wet. You want to bring the computer over here? Sure. Kind of show the bloom. And so the bloom is occurring now. And what a bloom is, it's basically the activation of the coffee. There you go. It's the activation of the coffee, which kind of, it blooms like a flower. It's activating all the oils, all of the CO2 that is coming off of the grounds, and everything like that. And it's really opening up and beginning the extraction process for our coffee. So we're coming up, and here we go in 40 seconds. So I'm just going to start my continual pour, circular motion, so we can wet all the coffee. And I'm going to pour slowly so that for my pour over unit, I have about 1 inch from the top of the filter. And I'm going to do this for about 1 more minute. Just kidding, by 1 more minute, I meant about 30 more seconds. Okay. You can put it back. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so while that's brewing, it's doing the full extraction for what we need. It is, I'll talk about the Kalita Wave for a minute of why I prefer Kalita Wave versus like a V60, a Chemex, or anything else like that. So Kalita Waves are flat bottom pour over filters, and they're also ribbed along the sides. And this allows a couple things. The issues that you can see with Chemex or V60, because they're all cone shaped, is that if you think about it, the coffee at the bottom of the cone or in the lower part is going to be more extracted than the top half of the coffee grounds that you have. So with the goal of coffee extraction, you want to use the full potential of all the coffee grounds that you have in there at once. And so Kalita does that by offering a flat bottom, but also by 3 extraction holes at the bottom of it. Allows consistent flow. So if one gets blocked because the paper filter has too much sediment on it, the other 2 are still able to consistently drip and flow and allow that. So the problem with Chemex, for example, not problem, you could still do a Chemex amazing, first of all. But Chemex typically have thicker filters, and so it's way more kind of tedious to get right. And if you extract something wrong or pour wrong or have your water wrong, it can usually over extract the coffee, which is probably the most problems that I see from people coming in the shop that are like, I just got this Chemex for Christmas, it's wonderful. And then they start brewing on it and they're like, I can't brew anything right. And it's typically because it is not the most user-friendly vessel to brew on. But that's okay. So we're finishing up the coffee. For any flat bottom filter, the goal of your slow pour and circling is that you want to have a flat bed of coffee is your goal. Again, all for equal extraction. And we're coming up on the last drip. Does anyone have any questions while this first pour over is finishing up? No? Okay, cool. All right. So this one's done. And also benefit for those that don't know, if you save your used coffee grounds or anything like that, it's great for compost and or gardening. Okay. So there. All right. So you can see glass vessel, 10 ounces of coffee right here. Beautiful. It's not too light, it's not too dark. You can still kind of see through it. In my sun, I'm sure you can't though. But let's give it a little taste. Pour a little hair in there. All right, didn't do too bad. One thing that I would probably do for this Ethiopian I would coarsen it up a little more, because in this one I can taste that I got slight over extraction. And the over extraction is just from a little too fine of coffee that I was doing. So I always try and change one variable at a time versus changing my water temperature, changing how much water I put into it, or letting it extract for longer. I'll start with one variable, and with this, I'll typically always start with a fineness or coarseness.
There's a question.
Oh, we have a question. What do we got?
I missed the first part. What coffee is he using?
Oh, coffee. So I'm using a bunch of different Ethiopian varieties because they're in season right now. And for this, I'm using Buchiro. Oh, wait. Dummy. Buchiro is Democratic Congo. Republic of Congo. I have my Ethiopian over there, which is Jabanto. So this is Jabanto, which is a Ethiopian Yirgacheffe. And typically Yirgacheffes are all hand sorted, typically by women, not communes, what are they called? Cooperatives, women cooperatives. And they're all hand sorted coffees typically from this farm that we got them from for counterculture. Cool. So, fun facts for most Ethiopians, if you're wondering, for when you're looking at specialty coffee or anything like that. I'll go over varieties real quick. So typically, Ethiopian coffees, if you go to a coffee shop, always being a little lighter and more fruity. There are different Ethiopian varietals that are like super fruity, and some that are just like kind of black tea, how light they are. So Ethiopian varieties, they have a lot more sugars. Their processes are usually in a natural or a black honey process, which is basically not washing all the kind of skin and mucilage on the coffee beans, more of the natural sugars and natural products that bring all those kind of chaotic flavors in the coffee naturally. Then think of your Latin American coffees as well as something that's a little more chocolatey, a little more, it's probably the most known coffees are Latin American coffees that you get. A lot of Brazil, Costa Rica, but they're typically always going to be more rounded, chocolatey, and little caramel notes to it. Just that traditional kind of coffee flavor. It's what our Big Trouble at Common Desk is. It is a Latin America blend always. And then if you ever try our hologram blend, it is a Latin America blend with Ethiopia blend. So it brings in the chocolatey and fruity into it. I always like to call it our entry and gateway coffee. Cool. I'm going to give this first coffee to my wife because I know we have not made coffee yet in preparation for this day.
Thank you. Alethea has a question.
Oh, Alethea, what's your question?
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Are there seasons to coffee beans?
There are absolutely seasons to coffee beans. So like most, think of coffee as a produce because it is, but think of it as well like as I already used tomatoes as the analogy, we'll just stick with that. You can grow tomatoes year round, but there are select seasons of where you want to grow your coffee. Or when you want to get the coffee from that particular area. So for right now, like Ethiopians are coming back in to season. Latin American, for the most part, it is around the winter times, like the colder times in America, where it's good in season to get the Latin America coffees. And it kind of all the different areas that you can get it, whether it's Mexico or Yemen, a lot of other varietals. It all just kind of depends on climates. For what the year is. But the good thing about counterculture is that they, through their partnerships with their direct farms and partnerships that they have, they focus highly on sustainability and quality so that, when you're buying beans from counterculture or buying beans through fiction from counterculture, that they're always going to be represented in a quality product. And they've all went through an extensive tasting and roasting procedure to make sure that they made the cut. And if they didn't make the cut with the farmer that they're using, then they go back and give them more educational tools. They actually already have invested into that farmer and shown, hey, like it didn't make it this year, but here are the things that we think you can work on for this next crop that will really do it. And that doesn't mean no one's going to buy their coffee. There are plenty of coffee buyers out there. It just means it didn't hit that top 10% of the market of what specialty coffee is. Yeah, great question, Alethea. Let's see, which one should we do next? Just for funsies, let's do the automatic brewer.
Do you need to move anything out of the way?
Yeah, let's move this and the pour over. Cool. So automatic and Mr. Coffee pots, for anyone confused on what an automatic pot is, it's super simple, and basically it's what you remember growing up with, what your parents use, what your grandparents use, and everything like that. And the great thing about being in the era that we are is that we have a little more special ways of brewing it. So my Bonavita brewer here, it costs me, I think, $80. It can brew up to 5 cups of coffee at once. And so for me and my wife, that's plenty because it's super easy and efficient to do. Yeah, the reason why I would prefer this brewer over a Mr. Coffee or like a Keurig or anything like that, typically the problem that you have with most automatic brewers is that even though on the box it says it reaches the proper brewing temperature, in reality and tests and many form and function tests, it's been proven that none of them really hit the temperature. So there's kind of a select market of brewers that actually hit the proper extraction brewing temperature for what you're doing. So if you're already paying, 14 to 17 to $20 bag of coffee, and you're still, brewing it in Mr. Coffee, that's fine. But know that you're missing that slight extra bit that you could be extracting from the coffee. So those are kind of the pros and cons. So this, I'm going to do 4 tablespoons for 4 cups for what I'm doing for this. Okay. Forgot what I did. 5 cups. And I know 5 because I'm cheating. Because in the Kalita filters that you can get, it's a cone-shaped filter. They're still great quality. They have little line markers for how much you want to put in there. So I always know for this particular coffee that we've been brewing at my house for Japanto, we do about 8.5 to 9 on the line for the coffee. So it's super easy. Put it on. Put it under. Brita filtered water works great.
What are you filling it up to?
To 4. And I'm filling it to the 4 cup mark. This one as well gives you an option to set as a pulsing brew method or just a straight pour method. Pulsing allows kind of a better and more extraction for certain types of coffees, in particular like this Ethiopian coffee. I have the pulse method on, or regular Latin American coffee or kind of traditional coffee. I would just put it on regular. But both, you can kind of tell the difference if you ever test it, if you get one. But if not, Mr. Coffee still works great. I'm just going to use Mr. Coffee or Cuisinart or anything like that. My recommendation for if you're having a problem with brewing coffee on those, and you bought like some nice beans and it's kind of tasting just really watery and not flavorful, that's probably going to be because you're going to have to try and get your coffee grounds a little more finer. So if you already think that you have it at a fine setting, just go one more notch to finer, just to try and get as much extraction out of that brewer that you can. And vice versa. If it's too strong and you think you put the right amount of coffee into it, then coarsen it up a hair. Because typically if something's too fine, it's going to be kind of a front of the tongue bitterness. And by that, you're going to drink it and you're going like, whew, little bitter there. And as well, it can be very acidic. So Ethiopians have a tendency to have more acidity, obviously along with sugar can come, and that can be from a lot of over extraction. Under extraction, obviously, is going to be papery kind of tasting, very thin, not flavorful. And so either fine it up or add a little bit more coffee, and then you'll get that flavor out of it.
Do you want a question?
Yeah, question.
Amanda says, have you tried using any of the reusable filters for either Kalita or Chemex, trying to find a lower waste alternate for filters?
Yes, I have. So they don't work as well. Well, they kind of do different things. So the question was for reusable filters for pour-overs. They work fine and they work well for what they're doing, but the thing they don't do, paper filters will restrict some of the other oils and or acidity that can come from it, and as well using kind of the metal mesh will just kind of let it all out, so you'll get more of a full-bodied, sometimes slightly more acidic coffee when using the reusable. And the things that will happen, they get really grimy, and it's hard if any of y'all have a like thermos or coffee vessel that you use over and over again, it starts getting coffee stained and stuff like that. A dishwasher typically won't get it out, and soaking it in soap won't get it out. But I can tell you for any of you, if you go to any of your local specialty coffee shops and ask them, hey, is there any chance that y'all have any of the special coffee cleaning stuff powder, and they'll hopefully say, yeah, here, no problem. And they'll clean your vessel for you or let you have a little bit, and it'll clean out all the stains. And so, Amanda, I would say for you, once you start to see it get a little dirtier, it will probably start to get clogged because of all those oils that get trapped in all the micro holes. So just staying on top of cleaning over the longevity, it will work great and work fine. But if you side-by-side brew it with a paper filter, you're going to get kind of a different flavor profile. But still, Brew's a great cup of coffee.
Do you want another question?
Yeah, let's do another question since it's still brewing.
All right. Does using a paper filter and or filter in general compromise the integrity of the final coffee product? Also, are there certain types of brands of filters you recommend or ones that should be avoided?
Yes. So, yes. For brown, I'm going to use coffee filters for like the brown coffee filters versus the bleached coffee filters. Honestly, you get better flavor extraction from the bleached ones, just because typically the brown ones, even if you are getting them sourced properly, typically just kind of muddy it up a little bit, if that's the easiest way to say it. Doing side-by-side tests over the years and stuff like that, you get more consistency from the bleached ones, and I think that's the key. And as well in all the Specialty Coffee Association, like the World Championship competitions and everything like that, everyone's using bleached coffee filters just for that cleaner kind of mouthfeel and taste. Brands as well. Depending for Chemex, I would say pretty much use the brand that is associated with it and be wary of buying them on Amazon. So that's one thing we've seen. So for Kalita Waves, for example, all these little flat bottom cone filters, there are many counterfeits out there, and I have actually seen very drastic differences of a very blatant counterfeit and a not. And it's typically going to be the thickness of the paper. So I always try and recommend either getting it from the source or getting it from a reputable source on Amazon. We have a certain vendor, so hit me up and feel free to send me a little private message on the Slack for what your brewing method is, and see if it's on my list of one of the vendors that we use through Amazon, if that's where you get your coffee filters or anything like that. So either buy them in store, buy the name brand, or do research on where you're getting it from on Amazon. So those are the kind of the big factors for that. Cool. So our coffee's all finished up. All done. See, quick and easy. Save the filter. Put that there. And the great thing about these, it is a thermal insulated vessel, so it keeps up to about 3 to 4 hours. Keeps it nice and hot. We'll use this cute weekend one. Give a little taste. See what we got. Ooh, much better than the pour over. Got those great fruit notes. Also, I cheated because we've been brewing this like every day while we've been stuck in the house. So I got it kind of nailed down. Kind of that salt, that table salt coarseness for the brew. Did 5 tablespoons with the mound, so hefty tablespoons for 4 cups of coffee for the auto brewer. And tips or things that if you're looking at different alternatives for auto brewers, if you aren't wanting a Bonavita or something like that, try and stay away from ones that have warmers under them. And that's mostly because once you have your brewed cup of coffee, you don't want to keep heating it up or doing anything like that, because that starts to cook it out more and oxidize it and make your coffee go stale or flat, or kind of get chalky in the end. So if you ever come back. But again, not everyone can taste those things, so this is where it comes down to preference. So if you really just want coffee and you just like coffee's coffee, that's cool. Go for it, and it'll keep your cup of coffee, hot for the rest of the day. Add your cream and sugar, good to go. No problem with that. It's just kind of up to preference of what you're kind of wanting to perfect or wanting to taste. So lovely. Do we have any questions in the meantime? Any questions?
6 minutes left before Zoom cuts us off.
Oh no! Okay. What would everyone like to see? Would everyone like to see cold brew or AeroPress or French press?
All right, let's see what people vote.
I'm just gonna say.
Someone said cold brew.
Cold brew, okay.
In all caps.
One cold brew. What else we got, y'all? Cold brew or French press. Give me like 3 more answers.
Cold brew. They all want cold brew.
Cold. AeroPress.
All of it.
All of it. Okay. All right, doing cold brew. Cold brew. So, easiest way to do this. We're gonna be quick. I also have a hand grinder. Where did my hand grinder go?
It's right here.
Ah. So I set this to coarseness, but I'm not doing it the whole way, so I'm going to cheat. But I'm doing it mostly so I can show y'all how coarse you want it to be. Okay. And this, you see, is about the coarseness of kosher salt or, you know, kind of rock sea salt is what you're going to want to do. So for this, I have a 700 milliliter, I believe, and how many is this? 6, 7, like a 7-cup mason jar. I think it's 36 ounces, if I'm remembering correctly. So basically what you're gonna do here for the cold brew, you're gonna get your ground coffee, and this is all gonna be visual, y'all. Let's see. I always recommend, so mason jars are easy because there's measurements on the side typically, but you're gonna want to do about 1/3 of the vessel for cold brew. So if that makes sense right there, 1/3. And then as well, there's kind of multiple ways of doing it. So you could do this in any container vessel or anything like that, but I use cheesecloth. A single layer of cheesecloth, you could put it over the mason jar, like that, and then when you're done, just dump it over. So now the water aspect. You can use cold water because when you bloom, or like room temperature water, because when you bloom it with hot water, a lot of different extraction processes can happen, and it can start to over extract, and when you put it in the fridge, it gets really bitter, and just doesn't taste all that wonderful. So I'm going to pour a full thing of coffee, or water for my coffee, up to the top. Put my lid on it. And shake it, shake it. And this gets your extraction rolling, and it's all about that slow extraction. Okay, so once it's shaken, you could take your lid off, put your mesh or whatever else you would like. You can also use an old t-shirt. So this is like my survivalist skills. It's kind of called, I've used t-shirts many times to make cold brew actually. Just kind of put it over the top whenever you're ready to do it, and then just flip it over. So that's the benefit of mason jars when you're making cold brew, is that it's less mess. It's easier cleanup, and it's just kind of automatic. So you just flip it upside down. Leave this in the fridge for 16 to 24 hours. And from there, you'll have cold brew concentrate extracted, which you could cut with water or just drink it straight over ice, and get you what you need. Typically, this is going to have 4 times the regular amount of caffeine because of the thing. Thank you. Love you guys. Thank y'all so much. So thank you all for coming to coffee class. And if you have more questions, please Slack me, or you could private Slack me, anything like that. Yeah, cold brew is super easy, y'all. Use a white t-shirt, use anything you need. Just keep life going on. Everyone have fun at their house. And I hope y'all learned something today. Thank y'all so much.
They said we could do another session.
Yes, we'll do another.
Oh, perfect.
Great.
Let's do another session next week. I got more.
Yay. Thank you, Spencer.
Bye, guys. Thank you all for listening.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.